Happy to see a lot of people here. Like I was expecting at least one, then I don't need to talk to myself. I can have some feedback. That was my goal here. And I see a few familiar faces like Leonardo, Thiago, Rone, Denilson, like a lot of guys I know in person because there are a lot of Brazilians here. And that's cool. And that's it. Let's get started. As I was saying, like the idea is to have more a conversation. Then if you want to ask something, feel free to ask. Just mute your microphone later because otherwise will be some noise in the background. But you can ask questions all the way. Like I don't have an agenda to follow. Then like we don't have like a time and I need to go fast. I can go in the pace that you want. It's just important to show like what I'm doing with GraphQL and Meteor together and like how I'm using it. Like I'm using like this for probably almost 3 years already. And of course the code changed a little bit, but the package that I'm going to show you, like the code that is inside the package, it's almost 3 years old. But it's working and it's pretty stable. Of course, you see like it's just like a small layer, and that's the whole idea here. Let's start to share my screen. Okay, just move Zoom to the other screen that I have here. Can you see GitHub? Yeah, you can do like thumbs up in the video because I can see the video as well. I have other monitor here. Okay. Then like this is the first package that I want to show, but before you start to try to guess like what is Quav, like Quav is my company because I work for Meteor, like I'm also Meteor evangelist, but I also have my company, and then these packages are just for what I was using for my company. Then they are under this namespace. They are not like official packages. They are packages that I'm using in my company and I'm sharing with you now. Then like this is one of them. If you go back to my organization here, we have like a lot of packages here, but they are pretty new, like the packages, but not the code. As I said, like I'm using this code, but now I'm extracting this code and publishing as a package. Then I will show a few of these packages today. But the idea here is to talk about GraphQL. Then what is this package here? I'm not like writing a bunch of code inside this package. Like this package is just a small layer here. And you can like declare types and resolvers. You can log errors. You can connect to the dev tools. And it's very simple to use. Like that's the whole idea. I still see a few people in the Meteor community asking for GraphQL integration. Like I don't think you need it, but this package is just like to make it even easier what you have before this package. Then it's pretty straightforward. And I'm going to create a project from scratch. Then you can just see like it's really, really easy. And of course, I hope this works. I didn't try every step before I'm live here. Then maybe some parts are not going to work, but I believe most part is going to work. Then I'm just create a React project. Then later I will also show a little bit of the React part, but it's not important to use React. You can use this package. This package is just GraphQL, okay? I call players because I will do like a player list. Like I'm from Brazil, then like soccer, like player. Then you're going to add players and probably just a very simple example, nothing fancy here. That's not the idea. Then I will just use Meteor with React. And I think you know this command, like this -- React is updated, then we are going to get like hooks and latest React or almost latest React for you. And I will just use WebStorm because it's the IDE that I use every day. I don't use VS Code, sorry, VS Code lovers. Okay, let me just open here. Let me drag Zoom again because it changed the position. Okay, then that's the Meteor initial project. Not like, I think you are okay with this, right? Any questions about like this first step, just to not lose somebody just because some simple stuff like, do you understand what I did? Just create a project, okay? Okay, then I move forward. I will just rename this because I really hate JSX. I don't know why you're still using JSX here, because if I don't, I will type JS somewhere or I forgot about this JSX somewhere. then it's better to just get rid of JSX here. And let me just replace just these 3 cases that we have. Otherwise, for sure, I'm going to commit a lot of typos. Okay. Let's test first if it's working, and then we are going to add GraphQL in a moment. When you create a project with Meteor, Meteor does npm install. Then you don't need to do npm install when you just create the package. Of course, a project. Of course, if you add more packages, you need to do Meteor npm install. Also, just using this time here, like it's very important to always prepend your npm commands with Meteor. Then you make sure you are always using the same version of Meteor. And if you are using Yarn, that's okay, but also prepend your commands with Meteor. Then you are sure that you are always using the same Yarn version. Okay, then that's the example from Meteor. I think you're okay with this. Then let's start to do whatever it's saying in the README. I'm start to add this package here, the GraphQL package. And you are going to see, I'm not sure if that's the best decision, but for now, I am letting the user to install the npm dependencies because then they can choose the versions. I don't need to lock the versions inside my package. You're trying to do some crazy way to keep these versions. And my idea is to just keep it working always. And I don't think we have a lot of breaking change, but when you have, then I will get these errors and I can just put in the change logs. Okay, if you're updating, now you need to do this change. But that's the idea. Maybe that's not going to work. But for now, you just need to install the dependencies. Then you have more freedom here. As you can see, and as I said, I'm not writing a lot of code inside this package. Then I'm using this other package here. My package is just a layer to make your life easier. Let me install the npm dependencies. You can install everything together, but here just for like to be better to understand, like these ones are for the server and these ones for the client, but you don't need to. You can do this in a single step. Let me copy this already. You see here that I'm using DDP, and there is a reason for that. Like I'm using DDP, then a WebSocket to transfer the data, even that I'm using GraphQL, and that's cool. But I can also use HTTP. That's not a problem. Like I have a project that I'm even using both. Like I have an external API where I use the HTTP, and I have my internal API where I use DDP. And for me, the DDP will have 2 benefits. First, that you don't need to do handshake all the time, because if you use like plain GraphQL, you need to do HTTP posts, and you need to do handshake all the time. And as in Meteor, you are used to use WebSockets, that's better for me. But also because you have eJSON. Like eJSON is a Meteor package that put more powerful on JSON. And I don't know if you are going to have enough time here, but you can create custom types. And I have one package already for dates. And then when you get these dates from the server or to the server using GraphQL, like they are the actual object and not just a string. Because when you use GraphQL in the standard way, without eJSON, you need to instantiate your types again in the client. And then it's pretty bad because you get the data, then you need to put your types there. And when you use Meteor with DDP, you don't need to do that because a JSON has a way to instantiate the types for you. Then it's just a better way for me. Like I have a project that uses money a lot because it's an e-commerce, and then I don't need to type new money all the time because I have just this eJSON, and eJSON is transforming for me all the time that I need to use the type in both sides. Then it's cool. Okay, the server packages are installed. Now I'm going to install the client, and we are going to start some code.
I guess no one knows this, right? Like I didn't notice that this is actually done with eJSON on the background. This is a very valuable feature.
Yeah, I think nobody realized that, and people try to work around this with code. Like you need to write these transformers all the time in the client, and you don't need it. Like if you use DDP, you can just create your own types, and you can just have this for free. Like you implement one time the way to transform between the string and the type to string, and that's it. Then you can use like whatever you want, and that's just going to work. And even I create plugins also for MongoDB. Then I can start in MongoDB without transforming, and I can also transfer the data over the network without transforming all the time. And that's pretty cool. Save a lot of time and a lot of errors, because maybe you think it's a type, but it's just a string. And then you try to access a method, but the method is not there because it's just a string. And then you need to check all the time. Okay, then I have my dependencies here, and I'm going to configure my server. And that's the cool part about this package, that it's very easy to configure your server main. And that's like all the codes that you need to configure your server. You just need to, I'm just copying here because I'm lazy, but we don't have a lot of things to copy. I don't need these types here. I will create my own types, but that's just an example using date time. It's what I was talking about, to use a JSON to transform stuff, but I don't want to talk about this right now. And I can just provide a logger because it's cool to have some better errors. Because if you don't do this, like Apollo and GraphQL is just to swallow the errors and you're not sure what's going on, then you need to log your errors. Then I'm just providing this log function, and you can provide whatever you want. In the example here, it's using another query packaging that log this in the server and also sends to Logly. That's a log service. But I don't want to complicate this demo here. Then I'm just using a console log here. And then I can just put like whatever type I want here. Like let's put type player, as I said. This is going to get better, okay? I'm just going to type here for you to see that the package is simple. Then type, and let's put ID here. And we can also write the resolver here. Then we can get a query, but before let me also type query. And then I can have like players and a list of player. That's GraphQL, like I'm just writing here, but I can write in different files. I'm going to show in a moment. And also I'm going to put like async, just then we don't need to hold the fiber for a long time, like players. And I don't have any argument here that I need. Sorry. And I'm just going to return for now fake players. I'm not going to return the actual player here. And I will put a name. Okay. Then I have a type, I have a query, and I have a resolver. That should be enough to see something, because if I just start GraphQL without anything, that's not useful. And let's just try to start here to see if I have it working or not. And just a quick reminder, I just add this line. This is the logger because I want to capture the log. If you don't want, you don't need to do it. Maybe even by default, I already do like this inside my package code, I guess. But anyway, I'm just providing here, but I think you don't, if you just want this, you don't need to override this function. And okay, at least it's not breaking. Now let me just put something in the client, then I can see in the Apollo DevTools it's working. Like then the client, it's almost the same code. The only difference is that's called start client. Then we have start server, start client. Then I'm going to the client main, and I will just paste the code here. And I'm using this connect to DevTools. Then I can use Apollo DevTools in the client. And I'm saving. It's going to restart. Okay, client restarted. Then I'm going to close this. And I hope Apollo, okay, Apollo is here. Then Apollo already identified that I have a GraphQL whatever here. I hope it loads. Okay. And then I have my docs. As usual, I have my players. And like that's all the code that I need to have a helpful endpoint here. Like it's working. Like I just type like this to connect to the client. Then Apollo DevTools can also connect because of this flag. I think if I remove here, I'm almost sure that it's going to Yeah, it's not going to be able to connect because I'm not allowing the DevTools to connect. And here I have just like this very, very simple schema in type, and I'm just returning always the same stuff. Any questions until here? Then I can proceed with more.
Yeah, you were mentioning the async function, because we know that in Meteor everything runs within fibers, right? Can I simply return a cursor using a fiber, or is this should I do something else to, for example, return a mini Mongo collection or something, or like a Mongo thing?
I don't think if you return a cursor, it's going to work because like Apollo does not know like what's a Meteor cursor. Then you need to return .fetch to return the actual array of data. But besides that, it's the same as in Meteor. But in Meteor, when you return in a publication, you just return the cursor because Meteor is going to watch this cursor, create a live query and a lot of stuff. That's not going on here. Then you just return. I'm going to proceed adding the collection. Then you're going to see everything in action together.
Yeah, it's just like a fetch, right? So you basically fetch the static data and you pass it to the resolver.
Yeah. Okay, can I proceed or do you have more questions? Okay, just also to show that it's really using WebSocket connection, we can click here. If I'm going too fast, just please tell me and I can try to go a little bit slower. But I go to the network tab, you have this filter here when you can filter the type of connections that you want to see. And if you go here, you can see like what's going on. And as you can see, like the data that I asked for the players, they are being returned using GraphQL. And also when I request the data, it's also using DDP. Like if I clear here and I go to the dev2 again, and I run this again, and if I return here, then you're going to see more messages like operation name, players, blah, blah, blah. Then it's just the same patterns that GraphQL defines, but running using Meteor WebSocket. Then you don't need to have handshaking and the protocols for the regular HTTP, but it's exactly the same. Like it's not like if you know GraphQL, you're not going to feel any difference. It's just going to work. You don't need to learn DDP to use DDP here. Any questions?
Yeah, since you're using DTP, can we mix the methods and the pub sub as well? Like it would be, it's all running the same on the same protocol, right?
Yeah, actually, usually in my projects, when I need to do something that's very simple, like an admin task, I use just Meteor methods. Like I don't write the mutation because GraphQL is very cool because it provides types and structure and you can have documentation automatically, but it's very verbose, right? You need to write a lot of code. Then when I want to have just a simple method, I just write a method. But the problem is that if I do this in core features, I can have a problem because then it's not going to go to the cache layer that Apollo has. And of course the data will be missing the cache. But you can use like, you can mix publications, you can mix methods. It's going to use the same WebSocket connection. Like when I have a user, I'm not planning to show this here, but when you have a user here, like you can just like, this is the hood, are the args, and you can also get the context here and the patch that I'm using, the Swidu DDP Apollo, it injects the user ID here. Then you can just get the Meteor, that's the same like Meteor user ID. Then you get also the authentication for free here in the third parameter. Then it's pretty simple to use. If I add accounts here and I create a user, the user will be here. I don't need to write any code to get the user. And then I can create a middleware to like redirect, to deny requests and everything.
Have you tried using this with an external framework like Nuxt or Next, for example, to connect it somehow using DDP? Is that possible? Or has someone created something for that? You know that?
We have many adapters for DDP. Like DDP was a protocol created by the guys that founded Meteor, Matt and Jeff. But later we have implementations of DDP for Java, for Flutter. I know there is a guy that is creating Flutter package that use DDP. Then his server, he's using Meteor, and in the client, he's using Flutter. And then you can adapt to any language, because DDP protocol, it's pretty straightforward. Like you have just ping, pong, updated, changed, added. You have like 5-6 type of messages. Then if you support these 5-6 type of messages, you have a DDP like implementation. Then it's.
But I guess for but I guess for external clients we can use HTTP like you mentioned, right?
Yeah, if you like that,
because I'm a huge fan of the DDP part. Like I'm constantly advocating the DDP, but the problem is that the original library is a little bit coupled to to the server and the client, but you can still use like a separate client, like you mentioned. So I was wondering if we somehow already have some kind of package that allows us to install it, for example, in a Nuxt project and use it over DDP with the GraphQL server of Meteor, for example. So that would be awesome.
Yeah, but do you mean like a NPM package, right? I don't know if you have an NPM package, but you probably do, because it would be
a nice project.
yeah, because DDP, it was really like the community outside Meteor, they don't know about DDP. Like they don't know the power of DDP, and DDP is really powerful. But just to show you, like I have this project that's a production product, like it's an e-commerce. And if you go to api.bmark.com, like this one is using DDP, and this one is using HTTP. But it's the same code. And then I have just a condition. I can even show you. I think it's open here in another web store. And I have like, let me see if I find this code. Oh, I'm leaking some keys here, but okay, I can. Like is API module. Let me just get this code to show you how I do this. I have just like 2 or 3 points where I need to do this decision, you know? Like I want to use Meteor link, that's HTTP, or DDP link. And then I have this, when I build the project, I select which one I want. Then with the same code, I can provide 2 different API, not in runtime. That's important to understand. Like when I build, I set if I want one or the other. Then in runtime, I have 2 environments running on Galaxy. I have this and I have this. They are different URLs here, but they are the same code. Like then I don't need to write 2 codes. I have the same code. I just have 2 live environments, one using HTTP and the other using DDP. And it's just like 5 point. This is just a log, then I don't need it. Like here, it's also just a log. Here, I really need to change the link. Here is also just a log because I put this message instead of the app. And in the server, I just need to also call in a different way. But like 4 lines of code, and I have both working together. But there is just one catch, because I don't have the automatic conversion from DDP. Then like when I use money in the HTTP, I have just like a number. And when I use money in the DDP, I have the money from Dinero, that's a library. And of course, on the HTTP, the library is not instantiated automatically. Then if you want, you need to instantiate manually. But anyway, let's return to our, because that's a little bit complex, maybe. Okay, then I have here like this working. Let's close bmark because it's not our topic here. I have these connections working here. But let me show you that it's really working also in the code level and not only in the dev tools. Then I have a few examples here. I will install GraphQL tag. Let me install GraphQL tag. And I will do like a very, very simple query just to show you like it's working. I don't need to do React. I can just use GraphQL right now. It's already working. Okay, let me copy this code just because I'm lazy, because the code's pretty small. Clients, okay. I don't need this startup block, but okay. Then I don't need React here, but I'm just going to write a query here. I don't have this now. That's just the example there. Let me write a query for players. Then I don't have anything about React here in this code. It's just, okay, copy twice. Then you need to see the data in the console. Let me Just get the data here and start again. Then let's see if you really have this working and not only the dev tools. I can also disable builds, but okay. Okay, then I have my return from Apollo and I have my data coming back. Then I put this log here, then I'm just using the client to make a query, and then I get the data back and it's here. Let me try to, I don't know if this is going to produce an error, just to show that the log is really working, because it's pretty annoying when you don't have logs. But I don't know if a wrong name is going to produce an error. Maybe if I ask for a field that is not there. Let's see. I'm just trying to break here to show the. Oh, here it's missing the field, but it's not what I want. I think I can try to break like this, because this is required, right? I think this is going to produce a message. I just want to show that I see errors in the client and also errors in the server. I don't know why I can't break this. Oh, okay. Now you can see this error message and you can understand like where is this error, and this is coming from that log. Because if you don't have this log, sometimes it will be very hard to find what is wrong with your GraphQL. Then you can see here, and you can even add more details if you want. And it's cool because it shows like, okay, it was player, and then the ID was missing. You can see the path, and it's also very powerful from GraphQL. Okay, let's proceed. Can I proceed? Like it's working. Then I'm going to introduce collection to do some magic here. And for collection, I have a different package that's also just a layer, but it's an easy way to create a collection with simple schema and a lot of other stuff here. Let me find collections here. I will just follow the README as well. This package can do a lot of stuff. You can read here later if you want, but I'm just going to add my package collections. Again, I'm not like recreating Meteor collection. It's just a layer to make it easy to create collections, to attach simple schema. And what I think is the best part about this package is that you can have the same features in any collections, including Meteor users. I don't know if you already have this problem that Meteor users, as it's a collection that's defined by Meteor and not by you, sometimes you need to have a different pattern just for Meteor users. And that becomes a mess. Like if you have mixins or composers that you apply in every layer, maybe just Meteor user you can apply because it's a different way, because Meteor user is defined by Meteor and not by you. In this package, that's not a problem. Like you can also use Meteor users using exactly the same patterns. You just need to do one thing different that it's explained here. Like you just need to provide your instance for the create collection function. In the other case, you don't need to provide the instance, you just provide the name. That's the only difference, but you can use in the same way, you can apply the same composers. It's like a functional way of mixins that I call composers here, but I will show you in a moment. Okay, my collection, my package is added. I will just add everything here, then I don't need to think if I'm using this, if I'm using that, but that's explained here. Like if you're going to use the hooks, you need to put this. If you're going to use schema, you need to use this. But I'll just add everything because I don't want to waste time thinking. I'm not going to use this one, but I'm also going to add just in case. And then you can create a collection like this. Let me copy this and I will create this player collection. I'll put here on API. I always like to name my collections as collections because then the autocomplete is going to work perfectly. Like I don't like to have different files with the same name just in different folders because it's very hard for autocompletion. Then I'm calling players. And I'm always naming my files the same as my main export. And I hate default exports. It's just a bunch of opinions here, but it's just for you to understand why I'm doing like this. Okay, then I have my player collections. I don't need to put this here, but just for you to understand, that's the way that you add methods to your collection. Like if you always need to do like a find by position, like what position this player is playing, then you could have something like this, and then you can use anywhere like players.find by position. Then like this collection field is the way to define more methods to our collection. But for now, I'm not going to do this. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to use simple schema. Then I'm going to, everybody knows simple schema? Have any questions about simple schema, or you hate simple schema?
No one hates simple schema.
No, I think simple schema is great. Oh, my machine is freezing. Maybe it's because of Zoom, probably. Okay, then I'm going to grab this from the example, like simple schema, name, age, and okay. And I can just apply my schema here. And that's it. Like I have this collection with schema, then I don't need to call like attach schema and do these other steps that you usually need to do. And again, that also works for Meteor users. Then you can have a standard way to create this for your collections. Then I'm going to replace my resolver here. I'm going to fix this resolver later, but for now I'm just going to replace by a find fetch here. And I'm going to import. Okay. Let's see if this is still working. Let me see if I have a... Oh, I put name, but here it's using it. Okay, age, right? Let me put age here. Then I also have this available on the GraphQL layer. Okay. Create a collection, players. I don't want to create the mutation now, then I'm just going to insert here. But I like the IDs from Meteor. Insert. Name John, age 20. Okay, I have the John. Let's see if this is working. This is the old error. Data. Okay, I have John, I have the age, and it's working. Now, the same code that was working with a static array, now it's getting from collections. Like I'm using Meteor for so many years that I don't realize that like this is very easy to way to use MongoDB, because I'm using for 7 years like this. Like I don't know a different way of using MongoDB, but I assume like if you just start a node project, you need to configure a lot of stuff to just do this. And here is just like very simple. And in this case, we even have a simple schema and everything's already in place for you. We can try to break this to make sure you have simple schema. Then let's try to just add a player without, no, we don't have anything required. Then if I add a field that's not expected, that's going to break. Let's see, John, age, let's put a different name, right? Last name. I think it's going to break. Last name. Oh no. Should break, right? Okay, it's cleaning. There is two options on simple schema, or you clean or you throw an error. I think by default it's just cleaning the object, but you can see like simple schema is working because I insert with another field and the field's not going to my database. That's what I want, right? I just want what I have in my simple schema, and that's it. But maybe that's not enough. Like I would like to do next step here, because otherwise I always need to do the same steps, and I always need to create the same like definitions here, but I will need to like create the save function, create the find, because usually you have like this. You have a player here, and you can fetch by ID, and then you can do like this, and then we also have a mutation here, and usually you have something like save player, like a CRUD, like create, update, and read and delete. Like it's always the same, like erase player, and then you can delete the player, and etc. Like usually you have this pattern here. Then, but I don't want to use like this. Then I want to have this ready for me. I don't want to write this code every time. And that's the part that I would like some feedbacks. But as always, like I need to get another package. Like the idea to have like small packages, that if you don't want to use this part, you don't need to have this package. Like if you just want to have like a collection with composers, with a lot of stuff in the collection, but you don't want to use GraphQL, like you don't need to use these other packages. Because of that, I have many different packages, but I have a package here that's called definitions, where I can, it's like a model. If you are coming from a RM type of project, like I can just define whatever my object is expected, and then I can produce some like content based on the types. Let me show you what I'm saying. Like I have this create enum definition. Like I was a Java developer, then I really like enums, and I use enum a lot. Then I have also a way to create enums. Like enums, for those that are not familiar, is when you have a domain like player position. Like you don't have like a dynamic quantity of player position. You just have like the people that play, that there is the goalkeeper, the defender, and I don't know the name in English, but anyway, you get the idea. Then you just have like 10 positions in football, or even less than that. And then you just have a domain that's a fixed domain. Then you should create an enum instead of a collection or just a bunch of strings, because then you can keep this enum, you can do equality with enum. Then JavaScript does not have enum, but TypeScript has, I believe. Then it's a cool feature that you can support also here in this part. But I'm not going to go that far. But I can also copy my definition here. My definition, as you're going to see, it's like my simple schema. Then I don't need the simple schema here directly anymore, because it's the same idea, but I can extract more data from this. But let me just transfer what I have here. Then I have my age. You can see it's the same. Like it's exactly the same. I'm going to put optional here, because on GraphQL I'm saying these are optional, but I was missing here. I'm not going to show enum today. And I have my name here, that's player, and I have my definition. And when I have my definition, I don't need to have my schema, and I can even get my schema if I want, but in this case I don't want. And I can replace here by definition. Then my definition is like a superset of simple schema. Then I can have more power and not only this part. Let me put a configuration here just to show you what this is doing. Let me just grab a piece of configuration. I'm going to create a settings file. If you're used to Meteor, you know what is a settings file. And I have just this is verbose, then definition is going to produce some logs for us. And that's a pattern that we are adopting from now on. Like if you have a package and you want to configure something in your package, like I recommend you to put like inside the packages key in your settings, and then you put the package name. We already have settings on Mongo like this, and you're going to add settings following this standard approach. Then it's easier to add more settings to Meteor in the future. Let me get the settings here. Okay, then my collections here. I don't think it's going to produce any logs right now, but you'll see in a moment what I'm going to do with this. Let me just check if it's working. Oops. Create model definition. Okay, I forgot the import. Create model definition. The order is not important here. Then I create my model definition. You can think these fields as simple schema. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty similar. And I also have the README here with examples and explanation. You can override the GraphQL type as well. Okay, now it's working. And let me show you. Like I have a lot of stuff here, like you can see GraphQL. Let me just put a log on this, then you can see what it's going to produce for me. Can you see here? Like just because I have a definition, then I can extract a lot of information if I want to use GraphQL. Then if I do this to GraphQL, I'm going to create for you like the type already with the fields, the input, also the fragment if you want to use in your queries, and also you have the types here. Then for now, I'm just putting this in the console, but what I can do, I can just get this. This is my schema. Then if I put this in my file here, that I'm going to do right now, like if I transfer this to here, instead of defining like this, I can just define like this. And I can do this for all my collections. Then I have my collection, I have my definition, and I have my GraphQL. And I also have another package. Maybe it's a little bit boring to have different packages, but I'm pretty serious about like just delivering exactly what you want to use. But of course, I'm going to write a guide that you can see all these packages working together. Maybe you should have like a super package where you don't need to include anything, you just include this super package. But the idea here is now that I can produce like my default mutations and my default queries, and then you don't need to write any code. And that's what I'm going to do with this package called resolvers. And then it starts to be a little bit cool, because if you are using this, if you're using this create collection, you can provide for this collection composers. Composers is the same idea that you use with higher order components, where you can attach functions and then you can call these functions. Then let me see if I can see this code. Like what is this resolvable that's coming from this package? It's just a standard way to save something. Then I'm just doing like simple stuff like, if I have the ID, I do update. If I don't have the ID, I make sure I don't have the ID, otherwise MongoDB is going to complain. And then I just insert and return. If I want to delete the object, then I just delete the object by ID. And then I also have this create resolver function where I can create the query for you and the mutation for you. But like just with this code, and if I just include like this, now this collection, it's capable of saving data and erasing data. Then it's just because of this resolvable. Okay, and then I can also put this in my GraphQL as my resolver. Then I don't need to write my resolvers and I don't need to write my schema. Then like everything is kind of magic, but I can just call here create resolvers instead of my fake resolver here. And I can just pass my collection. Okay, then I have my definitions from GraphQL, and I also have my resolvers. Then I don't need to basically write any code to have the create, the read, the update, and the delete. And that's where I need some feedback, like where this should go. Because the good part about this, they are just very simple objects, and I don't have like I'm not saying like, oh, I'm really smart. No, I'm doing like very, very simple things here. Like it's just a simple save, a simple erase. This is just like a very simple query. Like, but as I have the definition, I can get the right names here. But they are very, very simple code, like one line of useful code here. And you can extend that. You don't need to use like this. You can get these and add more queries because it's just a JavaScript object. You can destruct and put other queries. This that I'm adding here is just a string, like this part here. Then you can also add more types. You can add more queries. Like I'm not create something that's closed. Like you can't extend. You can add more data as you want because they are just like very simple things. And also I'm trying to not add any different layer. Like if you know GraphQL, you need to know how to use this. Like, of course, you need to learn that you need to call to GraphQL. But inside this, it's just like GraphQL. I'm not creating a new layer with new types, with new names. And now if I return finally to my project, then you can write some code. If I go to Apollo, if I go to docs, now I have my two queries. Now I have my mutation. And if I go to my players, I can just, like, I have these players here. Oh, I have this code that's creating Marias all the time. Maria is Mary in Portuguese. Okay, then it's creating a lot of Marias here. But if I want to I don't know why this extension sometimes it's putting the data there. But I can put like player here, and I can find by ID. Oops. Okay, then I can get John. Then like I have defined by ID, I have the list, and I also have my mutations to save and to delete. I can probably.
What I find interesting about this approach is that I tend to do it exactly the other way around, but I kind of like this one as well.
What is the other way around?
Well, a lot of people like me, for example, they do a schema first. So they design the schema and they make everything relate to each other using a tool like GraphQL editor. And then based on that schema, you need to just fill in the resolvers, right? So, but this is the other way around. And I kind of like this approach because it follows what I typically do with Mongo collections, where I just specify mini Mongo collection and then do the simple schema thing and everything, and it's all code based, so it's really it feels really secure. So I guess I need to find out, but maybe we need to sort of, because I see that this is a huge thing. This is a huge value. It really speeds up development. And so it's basically, do you start from the overview or do you start from the code or something? I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah. So for myself, coming from Meteor methods, I think this is great because you're starting from the methods and created the code into GraphQL. So it just feels natural to me to start from the collection going and then move to the GraphQL.
It is, right? Yeah, I agree.
And let me show you like the last part, then you can talk about whatever you want. Like, let me show you how to use this in the client, because I'm just showing a lot of like backend stuff, but the idea here is to have an app, right? Like I really don't like technology by technology. Like I like the technology to solve real problems. Then I don't like to just create stuff that generate other code. I like to see this working. Then let me show you. I'm just adding the React hooks now, because then I'm going to do React specific. And that's, I think, is also cool, because sometimes people in the Meteor community, because you support Blaze, you support Vue, you support React, you support Angular, you support Svelte, people are oh, this is just for React. Like in this case, I'm not using React at all. I'm just starting to use React right now. Then everything that I showed here, if you are not a fan of React, you can use in the exactly same way. Like I'm not using React, but now I'm going to show the React part, and then I just need to put the provider here. That's what I'm explaining here. Like you need to have always the provider to use Apollo with React. Then I'm going to import the provider. And you don't need to use the definitions, the code generation. That's just a layer that you can opt in or not, but you can just write your own mutations and whatever. That's not like required to use this package. Because of that, there are different packages. And then I can just wrap my app with a poly provider. Oh, I think I'm in the wrong place. It's better to put in the first layer. Okay, then I will add here. Okay, then I need to configure Prettier. I also have a NPM module to provide the S-lint and Prettier configuration, but I don't want to say everything in this slide. I can save for the next one. Okay, then I have this here. Then I have my Apollo provider. I can also delete this because it's going to generate logs all the time. I don't need to get this anymore. Then, okay, I have my app here. I will just code in my app. I don't want to spend a lot of time creating files here. Then I'm just put a bracket here. Let me import the use query from, I will import mutation already here. And like, again, my definition is basically a simple schema that can generate a bunch of strings. Again, it's not a fancy code. It's just generate a bunch of strings. Then if I want to fetch many, like if I want to get projects, players, sorry, I don't need to type like this. Oh, I want to get players, blah, 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 players. Like, again, because I'm using definition, I think it's reloading, or it's, oh, I stopped it, right? Okay. That's expected. If you stop, it's not going through. Then if I don't want to write this, that's exactly what this code is producing. Like, it's just like a query using the plural and camel case and using the full fragment and blah, blah, blah. Then it's just a bunch of strings. And that's also good because it's light. You can include your client. It's not going to blow your app with a lot of code. It's just like a string generator, basically. And then with this, I can just put a log to see if it's working. But you should have the player data here in the logs. Okay, then I have false because it's not loading. It was loading first, then it's not loading. Then I have undefined for the error, and then I have my players here. Then, like, again, one line, and I just use the query. Like, use query is not, it's from React hooks. Like, if you're used to use React hooks, you know that you need to type your query here, or you need to import from a different file all the time. But here you can just get this. Then with this, I can already list my players, right? Then let's do it. Finally, right? Players, then I can const players from data. I can also do this because if the data is not available yet, players map. I don't know if everybody here is used to React, but I will assume that's the case. Then I can just return, I don't know what I'm going to return here. I can just return divs for now. And I can put a key. I forgot to get the key.
You're the first one that doesn't forget the key. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I also forget the keys. Don't be so impressed. It was just a coincidence that I remember now. But it's just easier to see the warning and then put the key. Then you don't need to think about it. Oh, but I forgot something. Can you see? I did something wrong. Players, data. It's probably because the first loading, it's undefined. And that's stuff that's annoying about GraphQL because you get, sometimes you get null instead of undefined. And then you don't, it breaks anyway. But in this case, I don't think it's GraphQL fault, but I can just do this. That's not the case, but when you ask for a field, instead of undefined, it returns null. And then when you do like this, it's not working because null will not be replaced by the default value because null is a value. And then you need to do, instead of this, if this was a field, I need to do like this. What's annoying? Like, I don't know why they return null instead of undefined. in many cases.
It's,
but that was
a bit
not the
silly
case.
because in I remember from Polo Client that if you require an array of items, that it should just always have an array, right? Even if it's empty. So it's a bit. I'm not sure where this is coming from, but am I mistaken here? Does anyone know?
Yeah. At least for me, it returns null or undefined. It's not returning an empty array. But that's you need to handle, right? Okay, then Maria here. I don't think I want to have this many Marias, but okay. Then I have this working, like I have my UI, I can put the Maria here. But I would like to maybe to change Maria just to have, or to delete. Delete I think would be easier, right? Then it's the same idea, like everything that we have on GraphQL, I can have just like the erase mutation. I'm just using erase because delete is a reserved word and remove is a Mongo word. Then just to avoid confusion, I'm using erase. Then we know that that's the GraphQL layer because otherwise it will be remove, remove, remove. And maybe it's a little bit confusing. But you can also erase players. And I will just copy some functions here just to save our time because it's just like boilerplate. But I can send the ID and then I can refetch the query. That's also useful because I have the query name here because I have a bunch of strings. Then I don't need to use strings to reset. And I can just console log for now, like remove it. But I need the ID. Then I will put like maybe a state here. Player, set player, use state. I start with no player. Okay. Oh, I think, Scott, is that you? We have a celebrity here. Then I need to stop talking. Like Scott needs to continue from now. You're muted, Scott. Say hello. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. Scott, guys. Okay, then I'm just going to show like a very simple mark if you have a player here or not. Okay. Then if I have a player, just to be simple here, if I don't have a player, but I'll just show like if this player is select, then I will put like this, and it's like my ID. Okay, then I can create a very simple code here just to select. Then you can also remove set player. Maybe I should put just player ID, right? Then I don't need to store everything for now. Player ID, and then here will be easier as well. Oh, it's pretty annoying to not be using prettier here. Okay, let's see if I didn't forget something like, okay, I have my state, and then I can just click in the line and I will select this player because I want to delete the player later when it's selected, and then I can just use player ID here, and I can put a remove where, help me guys, put a remove button here, pretty bad, erase. Let's see if this is working. Then we can improve the UI later. Okay, I can select. Okay, I can select any Maria and remove. Let's clean up this a little bit. Like as you can see, because I'm already invalidated the right query here, GraphQL is also refetching my data, and then it's displaying the list updated. Like it's just like a very few line of code, and then you have like a way to add people, not to add yet, but I can also create something to add here. Do you want to proceed in this, or did you get the idea? Because I have, like, it's almost the same code, but you can also add players and you can improve this UI. But I would like to know, like, what do you think? Like, should we proceed just to show the creation, read, update, or and delete, or did you get the idea?
For me, it's clear. I'm not sure about anyone else, but maybe it's good to have just one or two examples just to illustrate that it works for all these methods, just to be sure that everybody understands.
Yeah, I can also get this other code. That code, by the way, is open source. Okay, it's like if you go to this repo, I have everything that I showed here and a little bit more already implemented in open source. You can just run it and you can see. The first part I was typing, the second part I was just grabbing the examples from here. But if I let me run this code, then you can see. Let me stop this. Then you can discuss this code.
Yeah, this is awesome stuff. Can't wait to do a Meteor project again. But right now I'm sort of stuck with React and Webpack and everything on my current client. So this is awesome.
Yeah, what do we have here? Like you have all the operations, like the UI is also not done yet, but you can see like I have the form to create a new player, and I'm also using the data, the date here that I'm using. It's really like an object. It's not just a string because I'm using the JSON to convert for me automatically. Like I can create myself here. I think that's a birthday, but whatever. And I can select the position, and then Philip's here, and then I can edit it, and I can erase as well. I can erase as well. And then like this is the same idea, is the same code, but we have like the 4 operations here. You can edit, you can create, you can delete, and you can update. And like the code, again, it's pretty small. Like to edit, I just like get the data from the form, and then you have like the save function here. It's the same idea. You just call a mutation, and the mutation is already ready for you because you have the definition. And based on the definition, I can get the mutation for you. And I'm not using any library to handle the form. Then I have this messy code here, but that's it. Then you can create, you can do whatever you want. And also one last piece that I would like to show you that I'm using in a project that I think is cool. You can even try to maybe use here. Like, do you know the idea of skeleton? Like when you are loading the data, but you are not ready yet to display the data. But it's pretty bad if you just display like loading, because it breaks the experience. Like it feels your app is slow, and sometimes your app is fast. But if your competitor, they put like a good skeleton, it feels faster. Like that's the magic that Facebook is doing. Like if you start to see every piece, you don't have any data there, but they're just in the right place already. Like that's the same that I do here on BMark. And that's not hard to achieve. Like if you see here, like this is a production app that I have, like the data is not available yet, but the components are already almost in the perfect position. Then for the user, until the user can read, the data is already there. Then it's okay, like they are not going to realize. And maybe you think like, oh, that's very, very hard to achieve, but it's not. Like what you have here, that's the actual code of that UI that I showed you. Like I have a wrapper here to create a skeleton. Then you need to have like a few concerns. Like first concern, you want to get the data from the cache, because if you use skeleton and you never get the data from the Apollo cache, what's going to happen? Like every time the user come back to the same UI, they're going to see the skeleton again. And that's also a bad experience because you should have this data. Then here, when I navigate to a store for the first time, I get the skeleton. But then when I return to the same store, I don't get the skeleton because I already have the data. And that also can sound like complicated and hard to implement, but it's not. And then like this is the idea of the skeleton. Then when I have the data, I don't show the skeleton. But if I don't have the data, like if I do a hard refresh here, then I show the skeleton. Then like this is the idea. And basically what I'm doing is here. Like I have this query with cache. It's just a function to set the fetch policy. And then I use cache and network because I have some pages that I just use network only because I don't want to get like old data from the client. Then I just ignore the cache. But then what I do with this, I create the object already like ready for me. Then I have this show skeleton here. Then if I'm loading and I don't have the data, then I should show the skeleton. But if I don't have the data, but the loading is false, it's because it's already loaded and there is no data. Or because of that, I have this other condition here. And if I am loading, there are many conditions here, but the magic here is that with this simple function, I don't need to think more about it. I just look to here. Like if I have show skeleton, then I show the skeleton. If I have is no data, I don't have data. Then I can just put like two conditions in every React component, and I can return the skeleton in this case, return no data message in this case, and in the last case I proceed. I can show you, like probably if I look to this, I'm going to find a good example here. I think you have an influencers list. That is a good example because it's a simple list. Because a few lists they are complicated. Let me show you. Like this. Like then I can use any query. I can provide my query here, my options, oops, the usual with GraphQL. And then I can get my data. I can get, if I don't have data, then I can get the skeleton, like the Boolean to show the skeleton. Then, I don't know, here it's in a different order. Oh, I think, I don't remember why is no data is first, like this code is, yeah, it's old. Okay, then like, but is no data, it's probably because if I have a skeleton, if it shows skeleton is no data will be false, then it doesn't matter, like I can put any order because they are going to be always one or the other. But then I show no influencer, that's the text in Portuguese, but it's say no influencers. Then I have the an empty skeleton, and then I have the actual data. And you can see like the same component, here you just provide empty objects, and then you create this list. And if that's the page that I'm talking about. If I go to influencers, it's pretty fast, but you can see I have the skeleton. Let me load again. Now I have the data. Now I hard refresh. Then I have the skeleton, and now I have the data. Of course, this case is not very good because I just have 2 here, and I was expecting to have 5 or 6 or 7. But these are the influencer with sales in the last week. And then, but what I would like to show you, then I can also include this in a package, maybe in the GraphQL package or in the GraphQL React package. It's like this idea to try to define with simple Booleans like is no data, show skeleton, and real data. Because if you look through this code, like every component is exactly the same. You have these 3 information, and you can already provide this better experience. Because before that, our page was pretty bad. Like every time you load the first time, you see just a spinner, and then you see the data. And just with this simple change, we are able to migrate to this better loading pattern that the user can understand what's going to be loaded. But that's not in a package yet, but it's just something that I think is good. Like, and you should try to do something like this also for the community.
Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, I told a lot of stuff, like more than 1 hour already, but if you have questions, like I can just, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, the question, I have the answer, right? But because I totally believe that this is a very good approach. The problem is that walk into a company and try to explain this to people, right? That's the biggest issue at the moment. Because also, like the package does so many, or the different packages do so many things when they are combined, that we just need a way to explain this in a very concrete way, to somehow market this and have people saying like, okay, whoa, this is really nice. This will really help me. And how does it help for example, compared to like Prisma or to Apollo Server with Apollo Client combination, right?
I think I can answer you in 3 steps. Like the first step, I have split this in different patches, just because like I don't want to require people to use all the packages. Like
that
if
makes
you
total
just want
sense.
to, if you just want to use like GraphQL with Meteor right now, like forget all this talk. Like just watch the first 5 minutes, because you just need these 2 functions. Like call this function and call this function, and you are ready to go. Like you don't need anything else. Like that's the first part. Like because of that, I have a lot of packages. What could be useful in the future is to try to group all these packages in a single package. Then if you want to use everything, then you just include one package and everything is ready for you. That would be like, I think good. Like in my projects, of course, I'm going to use all these packages. Then for me, it would be even easier if you just create one package. But it would be just for me, because I'm the only one probably that's going to use all the packages together. Then because of that, we have like this step by step. And the second part of this answer, like how I convince people, and maybe you can, I don't know exactly what we are saying, but one part is like education. Like, and again, I'm not like inventing GraphQL patterns. I'm not inventing collection patterns. The code is exactly the same. It's just the structure. Like I'm just putting in a way where you can reuse more code and you can write less code. That's the idea. And I'm also going to, like, it's a spoiler, but I'm going to start to produce a lot of videos, like, and it has a name, this project, How to Create an App, where the idea of this, it will be a YouTube channel and also a website. I'm going to explain everything that I know today about creating apps. And it will be like a lot of small videos, not like this one, like very short videos about specific topics. And then if you follow all the videos, like all the journey, then you can really understand like every concept. Like, but if you are saying like it's hard to explain people that are not using Meteor, that was your point, or people that are using Meteor already?
Well, I always take an approach where, like, imagine you walk into a company that has 200 software developers minimum, and now you need to sort of like tell them the solution, right? Like, okay, this is going to be the solution. Then of course you have a couple of developers that are really used to like, my thing is special, so I need to go very custom over there. And I think by far the trickiest part for all of us is to somehow tell people that this is a very standard way of doing things. It's actually what I've seen is you are applying best practices, right? It's not necessarily what you're mentioning as well. Is you're not going custom, which is very powerful. Do other people like feel the same thing that I feel? Like you want to explain to people that this is not custom. This is something very standard and it's very valuable. But it's I think it's the Meteor Paradox, I would call it, where it seems to be so simple that there must be some kind of catch in the background. And that's what I'm worried about when I'm sharing this with other people. And I've actually seen people giving this back to me like, okay, but what if you want to go do this, right?
Yeah, I think one way that you can introduce this to people that are not Meteor users, because here I believe everybody already know Meteor. Then I skipped this part, but I think what you should do is like do very step by step. You know, like if they're familiar with GraphQL, probably the first 10 minutes that I was explaining, they are okay. Like they will agree. It's better to use like 1 line instead of 20 lines. Like they'll say, okay, I understand. But the problem I think starts when you start to put like collections, but they know exactly how Meteor collection works. And maybe they will start to be, okay, but that easy. You just call a function and you have a collection. And what is your Mongo URL? Like, because Meteor just did this for me. Like then they will start to get these questions in their minds, and maybe they will just give up because, okay, there are too many things that I don't understand, that I don't want to proceed. Then maybe they step by step makes sense. Then people, okay, I understand why it's working because Meteor has this layer. Then I think you need to explain a little bit more, like careful in each step. I think people will be good. And also you need to also always think about this, like you have Meteor developers, and you have a lot of Meteor developers, and you also have people that are not Meteor developers. Then you need to understand like what are the pains that people that are not using Meteor today, they are feeling. And if you can show them that Meteor will alleviate this pain, that's a good way also to attract people to Meteor.
Yeah, I think, yeah, simply already using GraphQL with Meteor is already a good step, because you can simply use the same GraphQL client that you use in your Next project, for example, and then just hook on to Meteor using DDP link, right? So yeah, we're getting there, but I think decoupling and making, well, in the few, I'm an organizer of conferences specifically for front-end and Vue.js. And what I like about the Vue approach is that they take the approach where they actually sprinkle stuff in, right? So you have an existing project, but if you want to migrate to, for example, a more modern tool, and you decide to go for Vue, you can actually drop it into an existing project, and it simply works without doing too much things. So I'm sort of looking at this and see how I can use this tool to the benefit to slowly introduce Meteor as well. So I really see this as a nice stepping stone, but I'm sort of wrapping my head around how I can make this like a sprinkle approach, where you say, well, first install this package if you have this existing React project, and then slowly move away from, for example, a BFF Express REST server, right? So yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Like the idea here is just to have a conversation, like there is no right or wrong. You can say whatever you want.
I'm actually really curious about how you think about this stuff, like in general. So not only Felipe, but also like Alavi, and because I see you guys active on the Meteor forums as well. So have you experienced similar stuff?
Go ahead.
So
Ali?
where you basically have an existing project and you want to sort of introduce either Meteor or specific tools like this one into the project and slowly migrate to Meteor. Have you dealt with any similar situations, and how did you approach that?
Yeah, well, for myself, I've been using Meteor for some time now, so it's always been Meteor first. But I think with this library, with the GraphQL, it's an interesting case where you can have a Polar client and slowly add the Meteor backend. So, I mean, this for me, it's an extra option right here. But you can do it with Apollo as well, I think. But here you can connect all the way to the backend, to the Meteor collections and the database, all done seamlessly. So I think it's really cool.
It's a foot between the door.
Yeah. But yeah, I've done this with simple DTP, as you know from the forms. So I've used simple DTP a lot, and it's pretty straightforward to do.
Yeah, but I think this move that you are saying, Spider, like from full project to migrate to Meteor, I don't say it's impossible, but maybe it's not the best use case, right? Because one of the benefits of Meteor is to have everything in a single place. Of course, you can even today use just the client of Meteor. Some guys create like a Meteor builder client or something like that, and you can just use the client. But the full power of Meteor, it's better when you are using both sides.
Yeah, because you have all this stuff like differential bundling and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. But you do see a lot of projects. Actually, I'm not sure if it's a trend in Brazil as well, but here in the Netherlands and Europe, the trend of using BFFs, right? It's a huge trend where people create an Express server or something else that is entirely dedicated for front end. It's a backend for front end. And I've seen people doing that. I actually wrote an article about that based on a comment that I did on the Meteor forums. But it absolutely makes me cringe what they do. So yeah, so it's, but I get you. Like, if you use Meteor, the best way to use Meteor is to go full and use it as like a sort of like, this is your front end, right?
Yeah, but in this case that you are saying, like if you want to just have a backend good for front ends, then like this combination that I just showed you, because I did almost nothing in the client, as you see, like just in the end that I show the functions, like everything else was in the server. And I just wrote a few lines of code, more the definition, and you have everything. Like you have if it was REST, you have all the REST endpoints, but it was graphical. Then it's also a fair approach to run like this. If you are using Express or if you are doing Node, then you can save a lot of time just replacing by Meteor because you don't need to configure almost anything. And you can also
so that's exactly, so that's the value I'm seeing. You can quickly create CRUD operations from Meteor collections and expose a GraphQL endpoint to a client. The other thing I'm seeing useful is that if you have a Meteor methods and already Meteor backend and you want to add GraphQL to it, then I think this will be really useful. I'm gonna try it myself and see, like, expose some GraphQL and mix with existing methods and pub and sub. So I think that's another interesting use case for those library.
And just for like that, you're not going to be the first. Like Galaxy is like this. Like Galaxy started using methods and publish subscription, and now it's a mix because a lot of all the new cases are created with GraphQL. And we even have a public GraphQL API. I don't know if you're aware of that, but you can do a lot of stuff with Galaxy using GraphQL. And then you also have publication subscriptions there. Then the parts of the system that are old or that you don't need to update, you are just using like Meteor methods and subscription. That's okay. Then
so from your experience, Philippe, what would be a good use case to switch from Meteor methods to GraphQL endpoint? Is there a specific optimization, or what would be a good, use case to do that?
I think like that is like a part that is just like taste, like, oh, I prefer GraphQL because I have types, because I have this or I have that. And that is a part that is also the requirements. Like if you need real time, like Meteor, in my opinion, like the Meteor core with publish and subscription is more powerful than GraphQL, even with subscriptions in GraphQL, because Meteor is just like in the beginning, it's very easy. Then in the middle, it's very hard. And then in the end, if you become an expert, it's very cool again. Then I think if you really need a real-time system or a part of your system really needs to be real-time, I would go with publication subscriptions and methods because it's really easy to do. Like you have the mini-mongo is the key, right? Because you have the data in mini-mongo. And like Apollo, you have a similar approach, but it's not like really the same API to get the data from the cache. And it's a little bit tricky to manipulate this cache on GraphQL. Then if you really need the data in the client heavily, I would go with core Meteor. And I have worked like until today in both type of projects. Like it's not easy to say like, oh, no, this is always wrong or this is always the best. Then it depends. And the GraphQL, it's good that if you want to have like types, strong definitions, and it's also good if you want to be a little bit more light in the server, because when you use publications and subscriptions, of course, the server needs to keep the state of these publications and subscriptions. Maybe a good combination, like if you have a list in your system, use GraphQL. But if you have a chat in the same application, for the chat, you should use publication subscription. No, I think that's the best mix. Try to understand like here, I need to be faster and I can have types, I can have good definitions. Because one thing that is also hard with Meteor publish subscription is to control exactly what data you have in the client, right? Because when you publish to mini-mongo, and then you need to filter again. And in many cases, you know exactly what you need to show in the client. And then GraphQL, that's the good part. You ask the specific fields that you need, and you get the specific fields that you need. With Meteor, no, you need to read from the mini-mongo again, you need to filter again, and then I think it's project by project decision, and maybe even feature by feature decision. I think that would be my advice. Like try to think about the feature and what are the requirements.
Yeah, so from your experience, did you have a case where you had started the Meteor method and say, I would like to refactor this to a GraphQL because of an optimization or something like that? Or did you have a case like that where you started the method and you had to refactor to GraphQL out of optimizations or caching or something like that?
No, that I was required to, no. but I already rewrote a project that I was using methods to use GraphQL. Like you can see some benefits, like because it will be just easier to write the client code because you can shape the data exactly as you want to use in the client code. But in the same time, you need to write a lot of more code because I think the only part that I think is bad about GraphQL, it's pre-verbose. Because of that, I have these packages where I can just generate the verbose part and I can just write the parts that I really want. Because a Meteor method, you just Meteor method and return and whatever you want to do. Like GraphQL is not like this. You need to define your schema, you need to define your resolver. Sorry?
It's unbelievable how in like the 12 years, I think it's exists since 2012, I think, Meteor.
Yeah, around that.
That almost no other framework has this still. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but in the same case, like not against Meteor, but in favor of GraphQL, like when you have a lot of relationships, maybe it's a little bit harder in Meteor that like I have a parent data, then I have a children, then I have a children, then I have a children. And in GraphQL with resolvers, like you can, there is no limit. Like if you put a resolver inside another type, and then you can fetch this data very easily. Then there are always trade-offs. Like I think both are great technologies. And because of that, I said, maybe it's a feature by feature decision. And then I return to what Spider said before, like you need to have standard. Like if you have a standard way to do with GraphQL and you have a standard way to do with publishing and methods and subscription, that's okay. Like the problem is when you start to mix a lot of different technologies without any standard, then nobody knows what is happening. Like each day, one guy will add something in a different way, and that's not good. But if you know what you are doing, I think it's pretty safe to have both work together for each case.
Yep, good stuff.
Okay, guys, we are going to reach 1 hour and a half. I think you should wrap up for today. Like the next time I will try to be a little bit more specific, but today I just want to show you a little bit what I'm doing and what I'm using.
It's quite a lot what you showed, right? So I guess if you takes a lot of time to prepare this stuff. I know this by experience. If you give a talk, you want to explain everything. So I'm quite happy with that you actually did that. So it's better to have it a little bit too long than too short.
Yeah, but next time I will try to bring like just a few pieces, because right now I need to explain everything. Otherwise you'll be like, okay, this is how you set up your GraphQL, but I'm not going to show how to use it. Then it would be useless.
Would you be happy to do a similar talk for like 20 minutes? I know that it's very short. For example, on front-end love. I'm not completely sure when and how, but we have because we have the physical conferences normally in the Netherlands. But nowadays, because of the Corona stuff, right? So we do a lot of online conferences. But would you be interested in doing a talk over there?
Sure. I just need to know ahead of time a little bit to.
That makes sense.
Myself, yeah. But that just it. I'm willing to do this talk for sure.
Yeah, I will keep you posted because I need to discuss this, but I really find it valuable. I have a lot of colleagues that also ask me questions about like how could I integrate this, and I come from Meteor from a couple of years ago, and then I switched away to Next, and now I'm still interested in it, but what's the status of Meteor? What can you do with it? And this would be a nice way to show that you can actually use GraphQL with Meteor.
Yeah, so. Yeah, and if it's not like a Meteor audience, I would just show like the first part. You don't need to go too deep in this generation of strings and blah, 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 because that's not really Meteor. It's just like a layer to help you to be more productive.
Yeah, and maybe end with Meteor, right? You want to have this like, oh, you can actually automate this part with Meteor.
Yeah.
A little bit of promotion.
Okay. Thank you for your time, you guys. We keep talking.
Yes, thank you.
I plan to do more live calls like this. And
yeah, this is very cool.
Everybody's here. I love people.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.